Yes, no, what a very profound question, because honestly, in my own observation, right, I think that the law is inherently humanistic, right? If you apply a sociological lens to the law, you will see that ultimately the law is a set of rules agreed upon, right? So it involves, an agreement of the collective conscience, right? And so everyone coming together and saying, this is what we define as moral. This is what we define as good, as bad. These are the rules of governance that we abide by. And so remembering that ultimately the human lies at the center of the law, I think, is the first step in advancing law as an equitable vehicle, right? I fundamentally believe that we have to recognize the law as humanistic because it already is, right? That leap is not hard to make. But however, what has happened, right, per your question, what has happened over time is that we've seen, more and more communities receive less and less access to the law. Yeah, no. Once again, a really important question. And what I would say to that is that one thing we have to remember about the law is that it is fundamentally arbitrary. Actually, if you really, really think about it, it is all made up, right? This goes back to what I said about, collective consciousness of society. Laws are ever changing, right? They change throughout any historical moment. And when we recognize that, maybe we might not be as surprised when we're seeing, the kind of upheavals that we are witnessing currently, right? Laws can be built over a lifetime and they could collapse overnight, right? Obviously, we have a separation of powers in our government, right? The differences between the executive branch, the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and that has been established to ultimately implement right checks and balances. But when you really get down to the bottom of it and you recognize that, once again, depending on who's in power, that these laws are ever shifting. Yes, we have precedent, and precedent is slow to build and slow to develop. You might also be more willing to accept that times change, times are changing. And so in terms of finding our way back to a common ground, it really depends on us.